The fall protection covers a lot of information, and the time frame we have, of course, it's limited, so we can't get all of it. But I want everybody to understand there are specific OSHA regulations as far as in general industry and construction, both are going to be applicable. And of course, there's some other ANSI standards, et cetera. Okay. So basically, when we talk about 29 CFR 1910 or 1926, I'll be referring to general industry or construction. I put the disclaimer in here on purpose because the time frame we have and the things we say today are based upon what I know as of today. This could change based upon standards, interpretations, things of this nature. Just want you to know that. All right. So when we talk about what is a fall, fast altering life lesson, if you ever fallen, you know that's a fact. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about today is the standards as far as applicability. How many feet up in the air do you have to have fall prevention, fall protection, things of this nature? And a lot of times people get these confused, but the construction standard talks about if you go above 6 feet, general industry is 4 feet, scaffolding is 10 feet. There's some more, but I won't get into those today. Okay. All right. We're going to talk about different types of fall protection systems, whether it's work positioning, suspension systems, rescue, retrieval, fall arrest, fall prevention, roof systems. And you know, what a lot of people don't realize is when you fall, how fast do you fall? And you think about how long it takes you to react to a fall, and usually reaction time, you can fall a certain distance in the time you're trying to react. And catching yourself and stopping, pretty hard to do. Okay? So another thing we look at is a fall is like, what are some of the other issues that we run into, like the hazards? How about swing hazards? Okay? And if you have a swing hazard, there are ways to prevent that from happening, like using a horizontal lifeline. And we'll get more into that a little bit later. Okay? The components of a fall protection system you have to look at is what's the height of the person? All right? The deceleration distance of your lanyard, free fall distance, and of course, the safety factor being brought into bear as far as stretching of all your equipment. And you'll see how that comes to play in a little bit. Okay? Because all of this together, we look at what are the forces applied to the body when you fall. And so OSHA comes up with this regulation says only so many pounds of pressure could be applied to the body. And that's why we go to a harness system too. All right. When we talk about the stress placed on the body, look at the body height we talked about earlier, measure from the shoulder to the ground, because some people are 6 foot tall, some people are 5 foot tall. What about if you're shorter than that or taller than that? It all comes into play. The deceleration distance, we look at the lanyard, usually it's 6 feet in length. It can be shorter, but then you have some people call them screamers, okay, which is woven into the lanyard that starts absorbing the stress placed upon the body. And the safety factor, we add another 1 foot to the fall distance based upon the stretch of the fall protection equipment. So basically what I want to say is to use a standard fall protection system, you need to be kind of high up in the air for it to work effectively. Otherwise, you're going to fall and you may just end up hitting your ankles and breaking your ankles if all these things don't work correctly. Okay? All right. Now, I mentioned about the forces applied to the body. See, back in 1988, I know it's a long time ago, but I want to bring it out why people got away from safety belts and using for a fall arrest system because of the standard says only the maximum force limit on the body can be 900 pounds. Well, you take a 300-pound person and they have a 6-foot lander and they fall that distance, that's 1,800 pounds of force on the body. So automatically you can't use a 6-foot landing. And that's what most people do. All right. So, but then they said you could limit the forces applied to the body 1,800 pounds in a full body arms because the way it distributes the forces applied to the body. And this is what I'm talking about, a body belt. Now, body belts can still be used, okay, but not for a fall arrest system. And I'll show you that in a little bit. This next picture shows you what could happen if you are in a body belt. See how all the forces are applied to the midsection compared to when it's evened out over the harness. And of course, this is another picture here showing what it will look like after the fall. Here's a picture showing a work positioning system using a body belt. But the issue here is, folks, if you look at it, how far can you fall at this point in time? Not very far at all. So, and use it like this, what would be the forces applied to the body? Way less than 900 pounds. Okay? With a work positioning system, you have to limit the free fall distance to 2 feet or less. The anchor point must be able to support at least 3,000 pounds or twice the impact load. Okay? They do make harnesses now that have have D-rings on the side, the back, and the front. And we'll talk about those in a little bit. Here's a good picture here showing a work positioning system. It's built in with their fall arrest system. How far can that person fall? Not far at all. Okay? And this would be more of a device you may see used in this system. Right? Another question we run into now, what about when we're working on personnel lifting equipment? Like Jenny Booms, JLGs, cherry pickers, whatever, no matter what you call them. Okay. Do I need to wear fall protection equipment? Well, like right here, you have fall protection equipment built into the system, but this person here is wearing a body belt. Why is he wearing a body belt? Because what we're looking at is it's not a fall arrest system. It's more of a fall prevention, that he doesn't fall out of the basket. There's YouTube videos where people do fall out of these baskets for one reason after another, and that's another story. Notice this person right here is using this man lift. Notice how he has the fall protection equipment being worn. He is tied off behind him, lowered down, so that if this basket does kind of vibrate and jump up and down a little bit, he doesn't go over the top. But look at this person. If you go above the fall protection system, he needs to be tied off somewhere that he cannot fall and hit the ground, of course. But the problem we have here is a lot of people want to tie off to the side rail. And if you fall off the side rail, some of this equipment, based upon how high they are, you can actually cause these to topple over. You don't want that to happen. Okay. Here's just another picture here showing a work positioning system using the side D-rings. And here's a picture in some of your JLGs, et cetera, showing your anchorage point that you would connect your harness to. Okay. And here's another picture showing how they can be used. Another question we get into is fall prevention versus fall protection. So basically, fall prevention is like a handrail or mid-rail, prevents you from falling if used correctly. For fall protection, provides you like your equipment, like safety harness, lanyard, tile points, etc. So there are different types of systems. One of the bigger ones that I see out there in the field doing audits is having guardrails. And are they high enough? They should be at least 42 inches high, depending upon what it's made out of. You've got a chain, you got a little bit of leeway there, but you have to worry about the sag in the chain. Okay. But also, does the handrail, can it support a force of at least 200 pounds applied against it? Some people use the nets. I personally, I'm not fond of net systems. They are used a lot. I don't like to fall in the first place. Then on rooftops, you get into these warning systems that will get up there and they will tell the worker, hey, you're getting too close to the edge, stay away. You'll see more than this in construction. Now, there is a rule that came out a few years ago in flat roof systems, but we're not going to have a lot of time to talk about that today. Cover systems over skylights, fire protection. Okay. Safety monitoring systems, going back to the flagging system. Notice the wording, it talks about having a competent person to monitor employees to be able to recognize what are the fire hazards. That person has to be on that same working surface as the people he's protecting, within visual sighting distance and close enough to communicate with them as needed, and not assigned any other duties that may require that person to be distracted. Okay? That's super important. Well, the fire arrest system, 3 components. You got your tile point, super important, lanyard, of course, and body harness. Let me ask you a question, if I can. Think about how often should these items be inspected? They should be at least every time before you use them. All right? So, some people talk about the fire protection system being an ABC rule: anchorage point, body wear, and connecting device. Anchorage point must hold at least 5,000 pounds per person that's connected to that. All right. Then you got your PPE, your body wear, of course, and your connecting device, right? But what is this anchor point? A secure point of attachment for lifelines, lanyards, or deceleration devices. I think people connect PVC pipe, electrical conduit, things of this nature. No, that don't work. This is a lot better. There are engineered anchor points and there's non-engineered anchor points. You get into the ANSI standard, I believe it's the 89, 79, 89, discusses more about that. Here's another picture. Here's an I-beam. I like to show pictures so people can get ideas of what they could use at their facilities.
Oh yeah, one of the questions that we had for the participants was, what is the most common reason for fall protection failures in your experience? Equipment wear and tear, incorrect installation or use, lack of employee training, failure to follow safety protocols, or other? And Ronnie, you can keep going if you want, and then I'll report back on the results.
Okay. On this leading edge concrete connector, what I'm doing right here is maybe a fall or not fall arrest system, but a system set up that you have a leading edge of a building that I can never get to the edge. This will actually restrain, it's more like a restraint system that you cannot fall off the end of that building, all right? And of course, your body wear. There's different types of manufacturers and things of this nature. There are weight limitations on some of these. So if you have people over 300 pounds, you might want to look at, talk to the manufacturer of buying a special harness for that person. Because if I remember correctly, it's like these systems are set up for like 300 pounds and 10 pounds of weight from other things, people like tools and things people may utilize in their job. Okay.
Okay, Ronnie, I think I have some
Good.
results for you for the poll.
All right, good.
It looks like for most people, the common reason for fall protection failures in their experience was failure to follow safety protocols. And then the second one was incorrect installation or use. And then the third one was lack of employee training.
Oh yeah, those are the three biggies right there. You don't know what you need to do. You're not trained on. I mean, if you don't know, how can you be trained effectively? I think that's a big one that I see out there. It's like what I run into is another issue is, did somebody go through the plant and assessing the fall protection needs, communicating that to the people, okay, and then tell them how to do it. Watching a video just don't usually work in my line of work. You got to show the people, how to do this and do it correctly. Hands-on type stuff goes a long way. Okay. Okay. Notice there's, like I said, there's different types of safety harnesses. There's rescue harnesses. There's the basic fall protection harnesses, things of this nature. I like the ones with the buckles myself better. Sometimes some harness makers, they make a little deal that slips in and turns when you connect them, and that's fine and dandy. But if your people, if they're relaxed on getting them on and tighten them up correctly, they're more likely to use them correctly. Okay. The harder you make it on a person to utilize the equipment, the more often you're going to have people not utilize it correctly. Then we get into a problem of, the supervisors check the employees, see if they are wearing it correctly. That's another issue that we run into. Say a rescue harness with the D-ring, and so you could hook up in the front and pick the people up and get them out of the area. Okay. The connecting device. Okay. And then if we get into different things like this right here. Okay. Like a carabiner type issue. Okay. Notice this right here has a automatic locking mechanism. When you let go of that, it's going to spring back into place, twist, and lock. So OSHA wants you not to use the non-locking. Do not use those. If they don't lock, you can't use them. Real simple. I'll show you why in a little bit. Okay. So we only need, like I say, do the double action auto locking snap hooks or these carabiners. Okay. All right. This is how this works right here. When you push this in, of course, it's going to pull back and lock. Usually you've got to go to the top part and push in on it at the top for it will disconnect and allow you to open it up. Okay. Notice it's designed to be compatible with what? Full circle D-rings. That's the key. You don't want to hook up anything else except that. It's called a compatible connection. All right? All right, let's go on. Notice the two different ones here in this picture. See the snap hook on your right compared to the double locking on your left? Years ago, people had these. I seen these when I first started out in the industry. But those, you can have something called rollout, especially if you use it with wire rope. They can push that open and the thing can roll out. Here's another no-no. See, it talks about you want to use what we call a compatible connection. Okay, it's one snap hook to one D-ring. But look what they did right here. They tied back into their lanyard. They do make certain lanyards now that you can do that, but this is not one of them. Right? This right here, if this goes to a fall, this snap hook may break because you're putting forces on it it was not designed to do. All right? All right. Another issue is, see how they're using this carabiner right here? Where they've got the snap hook is on the weakest part of the carabiner. This is called gate loading. And so if a person falls, it could break. Right? Another one. Here's some other systems that we use, especially like cable grabs or rope grabs, using in these tall ladders. When you have these metal ladders people crawl up on, like water tanks, things of this nature, you may see something like this. All right. Here's another type, pipe wrap strap used. One thing about using these right here, these straps, you've got a tie-off point, but don't you notice something? The one on the right is connected to, let's call it a steel pipe. Will that steel pipe hold 5,000 pounds? But you have to look, make a decision. Where are my compatible tie-off points? They do make a D-ring extender, but if you use extenders and then you tie into a lanyard, you're increasing your fall distance. So be careful of this. Very careful. These were made because people didn't like to reach behind their back and try to connect the snap hook to the D-ring. So somebody said, well, we'll come up with this. Now you add a 6-foot lanyard on that. Now you've added about 2 more feet to fall distance. All right. A rail connector. Good place right here to use this. Good tile point. Now I'm going to show you this next slide here in just a second. People are going to go like, Ronnie, are you sure? Oh yeah, I'm sure. It's called a quick connect. This is used a lot of times in the scaffold building. I've seen scaffold builders use this a lot. It's lightweight. It has been tested. The documentation is there. The only thing is they usually connect this to the handrail of the scaffold. Now, to be honest with you people, the handrail and the scaffold are not rated for 5,000 pounds. Usually they're about 4,000, 4,500, something to that nature. Okay. There is a rosette on the end of that scaffold. If you use the scaffold, that's rated higher, but these right here won't work with that rosette. All right. But these are perfectly acceptable and they are legal. Here's another device people use as like a scaffold choker, but you would use this on the back side of the scaffold compared to what side you're working on. You don't want to tie off on the same side of the scaffold as you are working. If you tie off behind you, you have less chance of falling off of that scaffold if you lean over the handrail. Right? Now, this is a steel cable lanyard, and they are rated like we need to have them rated, but there's no give in these. Some of your other lanyards that have shock absorbers built into them, some of your nylon lanyards, they have a little bit of give and stretch in them. These don't do that. So if you use a steel cable lanyard, sometimes I call it a yo-yo effect. You may get it, it doesn't give at all, and it gives you a snapback on it. So be careful when using these. All right. Then we have these, some people call them Y lanyards, or some people call them 100% tie-off points, so that you can use these as you're moving around. All right. Notice the shock absorbers up at the top right here, and then you've got your connecting points right here. All right. Then you have self-retracting lanyards. I haven't seen the cost lately. At one time, they were about $300 a set. With inflation, it could be higher than that now. Some people like these. And usually what you see this used is like you want to shorten your free fall distance. Okay. And if you're moving, like let's say you're getting off of a scaffold and you're crawling onto a building, then you want to connect to that building before you disconnect from your scaffold. All right. This is what I mentioned earlier. We were talking about lanyards that have tiebacks built into them. Okay, so you got your D-ring and you got your auto locking snap hook. Of course, these cost you more money, but if you think about it, it's also going to lessen your fall distance. Right? Here's another one. The reason I put this picture in here is you see where all the parts of the lanyard are bunched up. If you've ever seen the inside of one of these, you'll see that this webbing up there has a lot of, I call it thread in it, so that when you fall, it starts ripping out the threads and absorbs the force, but it's still one continuous piece. Another question that comes up is, okay, Ron, you got all this stuff. How do I inspect it? Well, when you buy this, you should get some type of inspection documentation that comes along with it. And some of the harnesses that actually have a little tag on the harness that will pinpoint things that you need to check. All right.
Yeah, Ronnie, I put a poll up to the participants to ask how often do you conduct inspections of fall protection equipment in your organization? And again, it's totally anonymous. Don't worry, I will not know who answered what. So the options are daily, weekly, monthly, annually, or we don't have a set schedule. So go ahead and answer that poll, and I'll let Ronnie know what the results are.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So like with snap hooks, we look for worn, cracked, or pitted surfaces. Does the locking mechanism operate correctly? Does the latch seat properly into the nose of the hook? Things of this nature. On lanyards, I look for frayed or broken strands, cuts, burns, chemical damage. Okay, like if you're using harnesses or lanyards and things of this nature, and you're doing welding, what about slag? Okay, sparks from your burn. Does it get on to the harnesses to get onto the lanyard. I'm looking for that because that is going to cause that to fail over time. So how can you protect it? You can wear like FR jacket. They make FR jackets that will fit over your harness and has a hole in the back for the D-ring to come out of. It protects your harness. You say, well, Ronnie, it takes more time, I understand, but these harnesses cost money, okay? And you sure don't want them to fail. If you're up and you fall, you want it to work 100% correctly. Now, another question people should ask is, what if it goes through a fall? What do I do? If you're in a fall arrest system and it goes through a fall, you take it out of service immediately. Okay? You don't use it again until it's been recertified by the manufacturer. Now, some people say, Ronnie, that costs a lot of money. I understand that. Sometimes it's cheaper to buy a new one. Okay? But think about it. Your anchorage points need to be checked. Harness needs to be checked. Your lanyard needs to be checked. It's like in your seatbelt in your car. How many times is your seatbelt designed to work? One time. How do you know it's going to work the second time? That's why I recommend. I'm getting off the subject a little bit, but if you go through have a car wreck and your seatbelt is deployed correctly, you ought to make sure that the manufacturer recertifies that or put you a new one in the car. That's a Ronnie thing, okay? Did you get your answers there, Bonnie?
Yeah, I did, Ronnie. So it was a tie between annually and daily. So it seems like most people on this call inspect their fall protection equipment daily and annually. And then the next one down would be monthly. And then the next one would be weekly.
Okay, great answers, great answers. Because you always inspect it before you use it. Notice that. Inspect it before if you've got it hanging up in the shop, you're not going to inspect it every day unless you want to. All right. But what does OSHA want you to do at a minimum? Before you use it. Now, what's really good about the annual inspection is you're documenting that somebody has gone back and they making sure your fall protection systems are working. As part of it is inspecting your harnesses, your lanyards, things of this nature. That's great. That's an attaboy type deal. Okay. So y'all doing good. Doing good. Okay. Now, we mentioned this a while ago, excuse me, as far as the hardware, the bluing, okay, rust or corrosion, deformations. How could you have a deformation if it's gone through a fall or if it was used incorrectly? Okay. Remember I mentioned a while ago on the harness, you may see a tag like this right here. It's got your inspection points. The problem is with this right here at the bottom down there, there's no place really to document much at all. Little bitty square. If there's a problem, what I would suggest, take it back to the tool room supervisor, whoever's in charge of this, and say, hey, we've got a problem. And put some kind of tag on that, do not use or whatever. If you really want to get extreme about that, okay, I've seen people cut them up and throw them in the garbage. If you throw it away when it's defective, you know what's going to happen? Somebody's going to pick it up and take it home with them. Don't want that to happen. Okay. So like I said, we took a look at the material itself, cuts, frays, tears, burns, frayed or loose threads. How many? That's a problem. Because what we get into, we start seeing loose threads. Well, how many loose threads do I have to have before I take it out? I don't know. It depends upon the manufacturer. What do they say? And some manufacturers are different. So if I say you only need 5, somebody else says you need 2, go back and see what the manufacturer says. Okay? Solar radiation. The reason I put this in, I've seen people throw this stuff in the back of their pickup truck. Let it ride forever, then what happens? Paint damage or chemicals. Are the labels present and legible on the harness? Is super important. I'm telling you, I used to work with the OSHA consultation group here in Mississippi. And, we would look at all these different things. If OSHA comes in, if there's a fall, they're going to inspect all your stuff. They're going to be very nitpicky about this. And you have to explain why this, why that. Look at this picture right here. That's gone through a fall. You could tell because most of these are set up so that if you go through a fall, it's going to rip some of that stitching apart, and immediately there's a problem. Okay, let's talk about self-retracting lifelines just for a minute. Usually these right here limit your fall distance to no more than 2 feet. That's what they're designed for, okay? But another thing some people don't realize is these things should go back to the manufacturer based upon what the manufacturer says every so often to be recertified. So look at your manufacturer and see. You may not see that with OSHA, but see what the manufacturer says. Because I know with OSHA, they will come back and say, well, why didn't you follow the manufacturer's recommendations? Okay. Here's where they're using a self-retracting lifeline. They're walking on top of a tank. All right. And it kind of slides along on the roller, very easy. The problem you run into on something like this is you've got to reach up and grab it. And how high is it up in the air? Can you grab it effectively without putting yourself in danger? A couple of different types of self-retracting lifelines. Now, this next picture I'm going to show you, what do you think? Look what the person's doing. He has a self-retracting lifeline and he has a lanyard. The lanyard is connected to the self-retracting lifeline. That's a no-no. Because the way that's set up right there, look at your fall distance. If you got a 6-foot fall lanyard, 6-foot lanyard, you've got that distance you could possibly fall. Plus, you got approximately 2 feet from the SRL. So you've exceeded your 6-foot maximum. All right. Just another picture. I like the way this was set up. Okay. You can get these lanyards on these SRLs in different lengths. It's up to you. All right. But when you go to inspect them, one thing I like people to look at is the pin. We were at a company years ago, every pin on their SRLs was pulled up. Okay. Usually what happens, if you can see the mouse on the little cursor I'm moving around right there, if this is red showing right here, it's gone through a fall. Okay. Like I said, you always check this stuff prior to use. Okay. And if it's been impact loaded, you take it out of service. Here's another picture right here on the right side. You can see where the red's showing where it's gone through a fall. Okay. Now, if it goes through like maybe 5 or 10 pounds, no, it's not going to trip that. All right. But this is super important right here, folks. All right. Then let's get this. I wanted to bring out something new. All right. In 2017, I know it's a few years ago, but what we run into is on stair rails. Using the stair rails, the height of those was like 36 inches, whatever, right? 36 to 38. And then when you get to the top of the handrail up there, it would have to be 42. So there was a gap going from the 36 to 38 to the 42. And so OSHA came back and said, you know what? Why don't we do it this way? So what they're looking at here on the open side, on new construction, they want your stair rail height to be 42 inches all the way. It's a little bit more different, like usually your hands hang down on your sides and you can grasp it a little bit different on the 36. It's just gonna cause you to reach up a little bit higher. Okay. I just put this picture in here, like this is on the stair rail when you've got like a wall or something to show you the height for that. All right. Another issue I want to bring up is this safety gates. ANSI has different standards, of course, in OSHA. I do like the safety gates that close, okay? And the gate face strength requirements have changed from 220 pounds to 3,600 pounds. You go, how in the world we do that, Ronnie? Well, think about the locking mechanism, okay? That's the key. So when it swings back in, the locking mechanism is there. So it really just stops you from being able to push it back open unless there's a lot more ways of applying against it. Very simple. All right. Another time, what you run into sometimes is the gates will only open in one way. One way. Like you go to a door sometimes in some places you go pull compared to push, same thing.
Hey Ronnie,
Yeah.
John Knopf had a question. He said, is this enforceable now, the safety gate requirements?
Okay. It's my understanding on new construction to this. Okay. I would have to find out to explicitly, okay. Just there's so many rules, Bonnie, I can't keep up with every one of them, okay, to be really honest. But I will find out and we can email that out to everybody if you want to.
Okay, great.
Great question, John, thank you. John and I go way back, way back. Okay. Self-closing gate, just an example here, okay? Let's get to ladder safety. This is a big one to me, okay? Because when you go back and look at the standard, okay, there's different requirements. There's some updates about this, okay? 1910-23, all right? There's portable ladders, some of them are non-portable, all right? So let's talk about some of these different ladders. Like, what are they made out of? Of course, if it's like for electrical work, we sure don't want to use anything metal. Okay. They have fiberglass. You can have wood ladders if you want to, stuff like that. The problem I run into is ladders are they inspected? Okay. And what happens to them when they fail an inspection? I had one client would take a ladder, if it failed inspection, they couldn't repair it, they cut it right down the middle of the rungs and then threw it away. Because if they threw it in the garbage, somebody would pick it up and use it. Right? Also, on your ladders, when you buy them, you run into this issue here. What's the weight limit? Okay, there should be a tag on there. Okay. Also, we run into issues as far as how high can you go with ladders up in the air? Like a single step ladder maximum is 20 feet. I'll be honest with you, I don't want to be up there 20 feet. But some jobs, that's what people do. All right. Then you get into extension ladders and things of this nature, where you may go up to 60 feet. Okay. Personally, I'd rather do something else instead of using that. But it is acceptable. Okay. Now, this is something I think everybody ought to ensure that happens. And it doesn't always happen, but it should. 3 points of contact when climbing a ladder at all times. 2 feet, one hand, 2 hands, 1 foot at all times. What that prevents you from doing is carrying something on your shoulder or carrying tools in one hand, and you can't use that to grasp the ladder. We'll find some other way to take the tools up there. All right? Test pulleys and springs and rung locks and ropes on extension ladders. I like to say wear slip resistant type shoes with heels. Why the heels? So your foot doesn't slide through. Okay? Don't carry objects, like I mentioned. All right? Maybe use a bucket or something like that. If you use a bucket, make sure it's rated for the amount of material you're going to put in. Like the canvas work bags are a lot better than a 5-gallon bucket you go buy from Home Depot or something. You put a lot of stuff in it, you start pulling up a rope, the handle comes out, now you got a problem. He talks about maintaining the center line. Don't be leaning over to the side of the ladder when you're doing work. Okay? No. We mentioned this, I'm gonna skip this and go on. Okay? But this is what I wanted to talk to you about a while ago. See how the person going this ladder? He's gonna fall. It's just a matter of time. Okay? And people still trying to do stuff like this. Like, it's not gonna happen to me. It's just a matter of time. So sooner or later, doing something like this, you're gonna lose. How about your ladder daily inspection? Now here we run into a problem because the standard talks about these daily inspections. How do you document it? That'd be another question, Bonnie. Maybe we can do it in another class. How often do you inspect them? But the other issue, how do you keep up with the inspections? I've seen some people have like a barcode on the ladder and they would scan it in maintenance every day after it was inspected. Okay. So what do we inspect for? Things like, are the rungs intact, clean, free from grease and oil? No splinter, sharp edges. How about dents, cracks, bent pieces? All right. The hinge spreader works properly. Support braces and bolts are secured. Ensure the rope is not frayed or badly worn or on extension ladders. The feet, the safety feet, are auxiliary device functions. Are they correct? Okay. Another issue, like using the ladder, what angle do you put it? You lean it up against the structure. This is like a 4-to-1. So every 4 feet you go up, you come out 1 foot away from the bottom. Why? So it's leaning against the structure, because otherwise, if it goes up at an angle more towards vertical, you have a greater chance of it falling over. And then, of course, you're going to have an accident. Okay? We recommend, too, that you secure that ladder somehow or another. Like when you're going up it, does somebody hold it for you till you get it to the top so it can be tied off? Excuse me, or secured? Notice the 3 feet at the top. That gives you something to hold on to. I know deer season is coming up before too long. And I've seen a lot of where people have deer stands and the ladder goes up and just stops at the floor. There's nothing to hold on to when they get onto the deer stand. Well, one thing about these ladders, I found this, and for extension ladders, it's great. It gives you something to hold on to as you get on and off of that ladder. I'm going to show you another picture here and see what you think. What do you think about using this ladder right here? Would you use it? What if somebody take duct tape and they wrapped it around the ladder? Could you inspect that ladder fully? No, because the tape's in the way. Okay. How about the use of this ladder? This is being used on a job site. Notice the rung was broken, so what did they do? They stuck a pipe through there. Would it work? Yeah, probably. But did it meet manufacturer's recommendations? Nope. Should have been taken out of service? Yep. Would you get a citation for this? Oh, yes. You know, with OSHA citations right now for a serious reaching over $16,000, hey, it's cheaper to get you a new ladder, right? How about this one? You see the difference in the between the different steps? Now, people have made wooden ladders for a long time. They're used a lot on construction sites, stuff like that. But look at the difference there. You better have some really loose pants or you're not going to climb that ladder. Major issue. Okay? Let's talk about a few things here and see what you think. Of course, these are all unsafe conditions, right? And look at the person on the right over there, and you see that's not the top step. The one down below it is the top step, okay? And of course, this is wrong because if he shifts his weight, what's going to happen? That ladder's going to fall, and then he's going down. You know, even though OSHA talks about 4 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet, etc., if you fall any distance, you can have a serious injury. We had a guy one time, he fell one rung down. John, you may remember it's back in our old years ago. Fell, hit the back of his head on concrete, and it messed his head up for the rest of his life. Okay? Now, another question you say, well, why is he doing it? One, he may not know you can't do that. Two, supervisors never trained that person that you don't do that. Or he's just trying to get the job done because he wants to go home. All of those are problems. Or how about this one? Another issue as far as these scissors lifts, okay, the guy's going up there, well, I need to get higher, what do I do? Well, is he outside the handrails? He needs some type of fall prevention system, which he's got, you know, but is he connected to something that will hold 5,000 pounds? Different story. Don't know. What about this gentleman? Does he need fall prevention? Well, here, what would he tie off to? Did he think about that? Don't know. All right. How about this gentleman? Because what's going to happen is, and John, you feel free with all your expertise to jump in here. But if they're not using the scissor lift the way it was intended to be used by the manufacturer, we got a problem. And the forklift is, you know, if you take a forklift and you start lifting personnel, different set of rules come into play. You could have all kind of problems here.
Hey, Ronnie, we have a
yes,
question.
yeah,
Um, Michelle has a question. What kind of fall protection is required for individuals who are working in a scissor lift or mobile lift platform being
okay,
used the way that it is intended?
okay. Let me go back. Talk about like this right here, Michelle. Okay. These scissors lifts have their fall prevention built in. Okay, that's your handrails. All right. If in the manual, the ones I've read, I recommend you read your manual because your manual may read different from the ones I've read. Okay, as long as you maintain inside that handrail, you're not required to wear a fall arrest system, okay, or fall prevention system because you're using it because you've got a top rail, you've got a mid rail, okay, but the issue is, what if you lean over? Okay, that handrail. That's usually what a manufacturer, if you lean over or your feet come off of the floor, like to access something, then you need to be wearing something there. Now, the next question, Michelle, I would say is, what do you tie off to? Because in this situation right here, if he ties off to the scissors lift and he falls, he could pull the thing down over on top of him, or even worse. So shouldn't he have looked at something to tie off with the harness laying above him? That's what I would look at. But then you got to worry about distances. Can you reach that point and still be tied off? Hopefully, I answered your question. If I didn't, please come back and ask another. Okay? How about these gentlemen? Couple of issues here. What do you look at the extension ladder? Did they use it correctly on the right? Was the extension ladder too short? Should not even come above that part right there? Does either one of them have any kind of fall prevention when they're up there? No. The guy on the left, on the side of there, he was lifted probably with that forklift, on that pallet. So he has no control of how to get down. So there's a lot of issues you run into right here. Okay. Do you have any more questions, Bonnie? I noticed the chat thing was coming up.
No, no questions right now, but you are at 12 o'clock and we're stated until like 12:15, just FYI.
Okay, I'm probably gonna finish just a little bit early. That's okay.
Yeah.
We have time for questions if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I try to show pictures, not always just what's right, but what's wrong, to tell people, look for this. Usually, and John, maybe you'll back me up here, John Knopf, if it doesn't look right, it's usually unsafe. That's been my motto for a long time. Okay. But just think about this. If you look at the definition of a forklift, it's a mechanical device used to lift, stack, pier, tote, whatever it is, equipment. It never says lifting people. Years ago, there was a provision in the forklift standard that said if you lift people vertically, you got to do this, 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 and this. They took that out of the standard. Okay. So if you lift people with a forklift, now does it become a personnel lifting device? If so, what's acceptable? Got to go look at some other rules. Can you buy baskets that fit on the forklift? Yes, you can. But look and see if the manufacturer allows you to do that. I know we're a little bit off topic right there, but it still comes back into fall protection and fall prevention. Okay? This guy here, he wanted a mobile scaffold. Problem is, what people don't understand, if you move a scaffold, it has to be re-inspected every time you move it. So we got some issues. Plus construction on this. You got fall hazards. Okay, it's not fully planked. Okay. You do have a ladder there, but how do you get up on top of the mobile part? I mean, all this is wrong. All right. Now let's look at this next picture. The lady had a question a while ago. See where this person got above the handrail? He has no fall prevention or fall protection. That's the point. You say, Ronnie, how can people do this? Like I said, either don't know, they don't care, they don't have any training, or they're not being supervised. Or this person. In construction, especially home construction, I see a lot of these issues. Okay. That's why usually my fall protection class lasts 6 to 8 hours, depending upon how many topics we're going to cover, especially in construction. Okay. It looks more like a diving board than anything else, right? You kind of wonder, like, what's on the other side? What's holding it down? Earlier, we mentioned about connection points, right? This person here is tied off to his D-rings. Okay. Is that an acceptable connection? Oh, no. Not at all. But he was using what he had available. Just probably issue is it wasn't right. Well, here's another person doing something like this. We had an investigation years ago on a fatality where they went to check on the harnesses from the manufacturer, this literally from the place that sold it to them, the harnesses, and we found out that the harnesses that they had available during the inspection were brought back after the inspection, that the employer never used them at all. They bought them after the fact and never gave the people any training and stuff like that. And that employer got a willful citation and cost them a lot of money. How about this? Where's your fall prevention? Where's your fall protection? Now, in structural steel erection, there are different rules for fall protection we won't have time to get into today. Okay. But the same question is, how does the person get up here to help this person? This person here, this picture was taken by OSHA. It's on their website. The guy didn't want to go up the ladder, so he had the person lift him up in the air. Major issue. Okay. Now, you can have all the fall protection in the world. If you don't use it correctly, what good is it? Okay. And the last slide, we're going to be right about on time here, is this one right here. You know, right? You say, Ronnie, I know that's not right, and I understand that, but I put this in here. You know, they're trying to do something. Of course, it's not compliant with anything at all. I don't recommend this at all. EnSafe doesn't recommend this. But I see what they were trying to do. But that's not the way to do it. Okay. Bonnie, that's all I've got. Do you have any other questions, Bonnie?
We could ask another question. We could ask, a question that we had talked about. I'll put it in, I'll just go ahead and launch it. The question we had was, what would be the most beneficial resource to improve your fall protection practices? So your choices are more detailed training programs, access to updated safety standards and guidelines, improved inspection and maintenance tools, enhance employee safety culture and engagement, or greater financial resources for safety equipment.
I'd be honest with you, Bonnie, I like them all.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I said, one thing I see, folks, if y'all are in safety, is educating higher ups on the need, okay? And also, what are the answers to the problems that you have? I found out in upper management, if you have a problem, if you can provide a solution to the problem to upper management and why you're having to do it, it goes a long way. And so just like, here's your problem, here's a problem. Okay. Because a lot of people are reactive to issues compared to being proactive. And reactive, usually people get hurt before something happens. Excuse me.
Okay, Ronnie. So it looks like most people think that enhanced employee safety culture and engagement is the most beneficial resource. And then second was more detailed training programs. And then third was greater financial resources for safety equipment.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, you got to get them to buy into it. Of course, management's pushing and stuff like that. But when you explain to them why they have to do something, it's not just like because the boss said it. It's more like, hey, look how we're going to protect you, that you get to go home the way you showed up at work. I worked on job sites where my job was I want you to go home the same way you walked into the plant, you walk out of here. I'm on your side. I'm not just the OSHA cop, but this is what I'm trying to do to protect the worker. Okay. I think having people that are trained and knowledgeable about the subject matter. A lot of times we rely upon videos, and there's some great videos out there, don't get me wrong. Okay. But using videos alone don't always get the point across. Okay. Having somebody knowledgeable about the products, how to utilize them correctly, and two, that the instructor can communicate. That's a big deal today. People use all these acronyms today. That doesn't always work. Sometimes you just got to tell the people exactly how things are.
Thank you, Ronnie. We really appreciate you taking the time, and all your pictures are super helpful. I know that Bonnie mentioned that she's going to share this presentation after the presentation's over. She's going to share the PowerPoint so you guys can incorporate some of these great photos into your individual trainings. And of course, Ronnie is one of our EnSafe safety trainers. So if you want to get into that 4-hour or 6-hour or 8-hour training later on, reach out to us, reach out to Ronnie, me, or Bonnie, and we can help you get set up with Ronnie to come out and help you out with some training. So thank you so much for your time and taking the time to train for us. Thank you, Bonnie, so much for setting up the platform and handling all the IT part of this, which I would have no clue about. So thank you guys today for all your
Thank y'all.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thank you, Ronnie. That was great.
All right. Thank y'all. Take care. Bye-bye.